Hey everyone, James O'Brien from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. And you guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater podcast. I am your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. You can find us at those four locations every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to click that like and that subscribe button so that you are notified every time we go live. We do have a very special episode coming up on Saturday, June 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you do not want to miss that. If you would like to catch video replays of the show, just go to Heavy Metal Television. Make sure you're checking out Heavy Metal Television, or go to our YouTube channel. And if you would like to download audio versions of the podcast, just Google Talking into Infinity Podcast, and we're on pretty much any platform you can possibly think of. Let me bring in my good friend Brian. What is going on, man? This is going to be a blast. Our first ever kind of off show. We're going to do a deep dive into a record that influenced the band. It's not a Dream Theater deep dive, but it is a deep dive into a band that heavily influenced them.
This is going to be awesome, man. I honestly, I'm here I can't wait to talk about Junkies Blues, Fear City Slide, and International Confrontation.
I think you got the wrong record there, dude.
The album cover back there, the greatest album by this band and the greatest concept album of all time, Operation Mindcrime 2 by Queensryche. So I'm excited to dive into this one. How about you, buddy?
You didn't wait too long to get into that one, did you?
Wait a minute, we're not doing that?
Your notes are all wrong.
Okay. Still kind of a cool background, I guess. I don't know what's going on there. No, could you actually, if someone played a song from Mindcrime 2, would you even know that that's what it was from? I would have no idea, I don't think.
I might from the production, because they tried to use all the old amps and the same equipment that they used for the original Mindcrime. And so I think there was a certain sound to that record. I mean, I don't think it sounded like the first one.
All right.
But it did have a certain sound to it. So I think that might kind of give it away for me.
Yeah, because I was joking with these song titles. I didn't know any of them. I did actually buy this, and I remember listening to it for like 10 minutes and going, well, I kind of figured this is what was going to happen. But joking aside, man, the original Operation Mindcrime, wow, so a little bit of backstory on me for Queensryche. I remember hearing, I think, Queen of the Reich on like a hard rock station in St. Louis that played metal at night. And then when the first The Warning came out, they played some of that. And then I remember I went and bought the cassette for Rage for Order, and I was like, I did not like it at all. I absolutely hated it. It was like a grower on me, and it's become one of my favorite albums now. And then I kind of forgot about the band, and all of a sudden 1988 rolls around. I'm in the record store, and I'm like, the new Maiden's out. You know, we're going to go through that list pretty quick here. And I was like, all these albums are out, and all of a sudden I saw Queensryche, and you're looking at this album cover, and I don't know about you, but did you look at this and go like, I have no idea what this is? It looked like a news, a news video cover or something.
Yeah. It was weird for me because I was gifted this album for my birthday. And it was, I had like a group of friends, like the same group of friends all the way through, grade school, middle school, high school, whatever. And one of them wanted to get me, he knew I was really into metal and music, and he just ended up picking this. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I hadn't even heard, Eyes of a Stranger. And I was like, okay. So I was just like, I'll check this out. And man, I was like, I I couldn't get past the first side of the record for the longest time because I just loved it so much. And eventually I was like, dude, there's two sides to this thing, you know? So that was my introduction to it. It wasn't anything I chose. It was just given to me.
So going back to 1988, now we knew that there was, just having briefly talked, that there was some killer albums that came out that year. But I specifically remember, like I said, when I had talked to you before, when this album came out, so Maiden, Seventh Son was out.
Damn.
OU 812.
Yes.
Metallica, Justice for All. And
yes.
I don't remember if that was already out at the time, but I remember I had a choice to make. I could not buy. This was basically my second year of the first time I was in college. And that's a long story. 8 years of college down the drain.
Forget it, he's rolling.
But yeah, it was just, it was the heyday of metal. Like, I mean, so you're talking, you had South of Heaven, Slayer came out that year. Like we said, OU 812, Megadeth,
Damn.
So Far, So Good, So What. Two of my favorite albums of all time, Living Color, Vivid, great freaking album. Halloween, probably my favorite album by them, Keeper of Seven Keys Part 2. I've long said this is the best album Yngwie ever did, Odyssey, the one with Joe Lynn Turner.
Okay.
Ozzy, No Rest for the Wicked. Rat, Reach for the Sky, kind of an underrated album.
Yeah.
An album I actually liked a lot. No one ever really talks about, Scorpion, Savage Amusement.
That's a great record, man. That's my favorite Scorpions album.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I love that record.
Okay, nice. And then the kind of the album that sort of started the sound for this band, Testament, New Order. That sort of set the tone for kind of what they would end up becoming. But yeah, just a lot of killer albums that came out that year. And yeah, I just remember looking at this and I'm reading the song titles and I don't know, it was just a look of like, what is this? I didn't understand. I didn't know it was, I mean, obviously I guess you figure it's a concept album, but I want to get into just real quick here too. The producer, Peter Collins. So very, very famous producer, worked long time with Rush, multiple Rush albums. Also obviously worked on Empire, other Queensryche, I think here in the Now Frontier. Peter Collins, yeah. Here's the best one. 1994 Melrose Place, The Music soundtrack. He was on that one.
Apparently he shot his load on Operation Mindcrime.
Yeah. No, but I mean, he's worked from everybody to Elton John to Bon Jovi to Brian Setzer to Jewel. I mean, this guy's worked with everyone. Right. Here's one of the coolest ones I saw was the Mayfield 4 Second Skin. Are you familiar with that band?
I am not.
That is Miles Kennedy. That is his original band. And
no kidding.
I am curious to know, because you don't just bring in Peter Collins in 2001 for an album for 20 cents on the dollar. So they must have had some serious backing on that, for that project to bring in a guy like Peter Collins. But yeah, what a sonic masterpiece. And I mean, I guess we're in agreement. This year, probably no doubt the best Queensryche album.
Yeah. I mean, this is, for me, this is in my top 3 records. I think I've said before on the show, my top 2 and the 2 most influential records for me are Van Halen's 1984 and Justice for All, which, to answer your question, by the way, Queensryche was released on May 2nd. Operation Mindcrime was May 2nd of 88, and Justice for All was September 7th. So they're only a couple months apart. But my number 3 is Operation Mindcrime. So yeah, this record for me is just, I think we talked about it when we came up with the idea for the show. We were like, this is like a perfect record for me, and I absolutely love everything about it. So our buddy JG3 is chiming in. He says, you guys are bringing some much needed good vibes today. I've been sick with COVID the last 2 days. Pretty rough. That sucks, man. Well, glad we can bring a little bit of goodness to you. That's brutal, dude. It hits everybody different ways. Both my brothers got it. One of them said he's had a 2-day sniffle that was worse, and the other one was damn near hospitalized. So that was pretty crazy. Here we go. Be Cool or Be Podcast Out. Peter also did Rush's Counterparts and Test for Echo. I really like Test for Echo. People don't talk about that record a lot. I kind of dig it.
Yeah, he did my favorite one, Power Windows.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that's really kind of a love-hate sort of relationship with that era of the band, those couple 3 albums in a row there, where it's just so many, there's so many synthesizers and so much production going on, but I think it sounds killer. So I loved it.
Yeah. Well, oh, look at this. I did not know this either. K.O. McLeish, what's up, man? He says, also, the studio that Mindcrime was recorded in was where Dream Theater did When Dream and Day Unite. You know what? I think that was in the Lifting Shadows book, and I forgot that fact. Man, look at JG3. He's against me. I'm a big Rush fan, but I hate Test for Echo. I love Power Windows. All right, he's on your side.
Yeah,
you got
Test
a
for
friend
Echo
there.
is kind of that's polarizing too. There's some people that love it and some that hate it.
I dig it. I mean, I'm not a huge Rush fan though, so I'm very uneducated on the band. But so yeah, why don't we jump into this, man? Like I say, we're gonna do these from time to time where we don't talk directly about Dream Theater, but talk about bands that influenced Dream Theater. And I would say that Queensryche is way high up on that list. Mike Portnoy had an inspiration corner that he set up while they were recording Scenes from a Memory, and he put up all of his favorite concept records, and this was one of them. And this record is just so easy for me to talk about because, again, it's my third favorite record of all time. I listened to it so many times this week, and I took some notes, but I realized I didn't really need a lot of notes. It was like, this song is good. This song is good.
It's gonna be interesting how we go through this. I don't know.
I know, but I mean, it's interesting to talk about though, man, because I mean, to start, the thing that was fascinating to me is, like, if you listen to a lot of other stuff that came out in 1988, it had like thin production. It had that late 80s, like tinny. We just went through the Symphony X catalog, and that was, weak and tinny. And this record is fat, and it grooves, and it's got a big sound. And, especially in like the guitar tones, it's just not your typical late 80s heavy metal guitar tone. I mean, this thing sounds incredible. So I don't know if this is a case of, they had a bunch of money to spend, which I can't imagine they did, because this is their fourth record, and they hadn't really broken. So I don't know if it's a case of them actually getting money from the label because the label loved the concept, which I highly doubt, or if it's just a case of, lightning in a bottle. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a great question, because I know Rage for Order did like okay, and there was a video for Gonna Get Close to You that was, probably on Headbangers Ball and maybe made its way on MTV once in a while. But yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about it. But yeah, the guitars, I mean, especially the guitars, I was reading somewhere too, because I was trying to clarify on, so they had switched to ESP at this point. And I mean, you remember those pictures of the two of Wilton and DeGarmo together, and how killer those ESPs looked, and just on stage, the way they just kind of just moved, they didn't run around a lot, but they just play a lot of those harmony solos together. And I don't know, it's just on this album, they're able to just intertwine those guitars in and out. You never really know who's playing what. I don't think exactly. I mean, I know DeGarmo is like the chief writer, and he had a lot more to do with the writing, I believe, in composition and stuff. But yeah, this album sounds great. There's a lot of great, like, a lot of them kind of start out with a thumping bass, with got the bass kind of thumping on quarter notes, but it evolves into something a lot more progressive than that, even if the sort of the foundation is kind of those quarter notes with the bass thumping, because the guitars are just playing these just funky chords that you just don't hear like really in metal, and the way that those guys are able to pull it off was just, I don't know, it really is a sonic, like. So just to clarify, this was your first experience even listening to Queensryche?
Yes.
You had not even heard them before. Okay, so that's
I hadn't even heard of the band.
Okay.
So I mean, I was 12 years old, and I was like, "What the hell is Queensryche?" And I mean, I looked at the album cover, and then the backs, it said Revolution Calling, and I'm like, "What's Operation Mindcrime?" I'm like, the song titles at least look cool. And honestly, like, again, it was a gift, so I was like, "Well, I have to listen to it. Like, I have to be polite to my buddy." Like, and God bless it. I'll never forget, his name was Lee McKinney. And man, Lee McKinney, if you're out there, man, if you ever find this, thank you. Holy shit. Like, that's one hell of a gift, man.
So I think I had told you, so there was this guy I went to school. It was this giant, like 6'6" dude with basically blonde bowl haircut down to almost his eyes, long in the back,
Right.
with glasses the size of Coke bottles. Basically me if I had longer hair then. Um, I'd switch the context at that point. But this dude, we used to call him the Metal Machine, because this guy had we go over to his apartment, on campus, and he had like every metal. Like, do you remember the band Candlemass? He was like the first guy to like listen to this Candlemass. I'm like, what the hell? Where do you even find this stuff? Right. So anyway, he's the one. He had bought Mindcrime, because I'm like, I can't buy both of these, so he let me record it. So I recorded it onto, I had to have 45 minutes on each side to fit it on. So I about wore out that damn tape. I mean, I played the thing just nonstop, back and forth. And then, as I've told before, I was lucky enough to see the Justice tour with, Reich opening. The only thing was they really didn't play. I think they played Breaking the Silence, Mindcrime, and probably Can't Believe in Love. Maybe Eyes of a Stranger. I don't know if they played 4 songs, but because they opened anyway. So So I didn't see the whole album then, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get goosebumps thinking about that time of music, don't you? Like when you're like, oh man, it's so exciting, and the albums were so good, and you just couldn't wait to get to the store and see them. And
yep. I mean, you're not that much older than me, but my wife and I always talk, because she's 2 years older than I am. I'm 46, and she'll be 48 next month. And we always talk about how we were born a decade too late. Because, if I was born in 66, I'd have been 22 years old when this came out. And this is like, I mean, that era, like you said, I mean, all the stuff that was out in the mid to late 80s and early 90s was just absolutely killer. I mean, now we go to shows and we're like, all right, we're going to skip the opening band, whatever, like screw this. But that back then you're like, oh, I'm going to go see Metallica on the Justice tour, and I'm going to catch Queensryche opening. I mean, that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Well, I remember Don't Believe in Love coming on the radio, and people probably going, oh, it was almost like, remember when Extreme got More Than Words played? You're like, oh, this is what they're, or this song's about love, all songs in the album about love. Like, no, it's not really what this is about.
Nope. So Kale McLeish, we got a couple comments here. So Kale McLeish says, so if I've never listened to this album, let's see if you can sell it to me. All right. And, here we go. Robert Husted, he says, I listened to this album for the first time last week, and I haven't been able to stop listening to it. Vocals are just amazing the entire time, and just an amazing album all the way around. Yeah, wow. Man, Robert, I'm surprised you haven't listened to this, man. My brother-in-law, Andy, your brother-in-law, well, my brother-in-law, my best friend, your brother-in-law, Andy, man, he loves this record. He's a big Queensryche. I'm surprised you haven't been exposed to it before, but yeah, Kale, we are going to attempt to sell this record to people that have never listened to it, and I think we'll do a damn good job. Right before we get started, I will say one thing in response to something that you said earlier. You had mentioned, like, the song starting out with like a quarter note, like on the bass and stuff. One of my notes here is that I really think the bass lines, this is something I noticed in the last few days I never really listened to. The bass lines are very underrated. There's actually more going on there than I ever noticed. And when I really started listening for it, I was like, holy crap. And just the bass tone itself is not a mid to late 80s bass tone. That is a fat sound, dude. Eddie Jackson has always had that kick-ass sound, and man, this record just sounds great. It just sounds awesome. I mean, it really doesn't, like a lot of those late 80s records and stuff, they're dated by the production. I don't think this one suffers from that. Do you?
No, and it's interesting because looking at that list that we had of albums, I think most of those are pretty solid. The one that I thought had pretty lame production was the Megadeth. So Far So Good, So What. I hate the production on that.
That was pretty thin.
The Maiden, the Maiden had solid. The Van Halen's always decent. The Metallica was what it was. But yeah, I mean the Rat definitely has that 80s Rat, sound. Yeah. That's what they mean. But yeah, the production on this, the bass sounds, but it's like if you think the bass sounds good on this, man, when you get to Empire, like Della Brown and stuff, oh my god.
Yeah.
Those tones are just, I mean, if we don't know where they got the money for this, well, after this did so well, they must have spent triple that on Empire, because we'll probably save that for another episode maybe sometime, but the production and the bass and the tones on that, but we're here to talk about Mindcrime. Yeah, I mean the bass sounds great, the drums sound great. I like too that you kind of get back to a more traditional metal, sound as because Rage for Order was so far out there that like that's a tough
Yeah.
sell to people. Like okay, if I said here's your first Queensryche album and I gave you Rage for Order, I don't know, you might make it past Walk to the Shadows in the second song, but I don't, if you get the stuff like Neue Regel, which I think is amazing, and Screaming in Digital, I love, but I think those would be tough sells for a first time listener for Queensryche, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I enjoy that record, but it's definitely weird. And that's why when, like you said, there's a video for Gonna Get Close to You. I'm like, why is it not Walking in the Shadows? Like, that's like a straight up rocker and everything. And then you get this weird, creepy stalker song. It's like, the hell is that? So,
well, it's such a horrible song title too, because you're like, oh boy, this sounds like a song title from, I don't know, Faster Pussycat or something. Right. Not that I don't like them, but you know what I mean? It just sounds like a bad 80s title. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, the production on this is just, I mean, anytime there's like sound effects and things like going on, especially if you got your headphones, like it doesn't sound like out of place. You know what I mean? It sounds like you're like right there. Like it sounds like what's going on is going on in the studio or live or whatever you want to phrase it,
Yep. Totally agree. So let's dig into this. Obviously, the first couple tracks are, it's kind of like the intro to the record. We've got I Remember Now and Anarchy X. So, I remember now, when that kicked in the first time I heard the record, I was like, what the hell is this? Like it grabbed me immediately. And it even though it's just it's like a soundbite type of thing, man, does it set a tone. You're like, wait, what the hell's coming next? Like, what is this going to be all about? And then, when the instrumental kicks in, Anarchy X, it's like, it's majestic and it's kind of like that, okay, something big is coming. And, and again, it also has that, ooh, what's coming next? Like, I mean, it's just, even though they're two little pieces, it really leads into the record really well, because you get an idea of the tone and the feel of the story that's going to come forward, and you get an idea of the songwriting and kind of the direction of the music, I think, right off the bat. What is your opinion on those two?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's you're right away, you're just kind of like freaked out, like, wait, what is going on here? What is this all about? I mean, how much do we want to delve into the concept here? Do we want to lay it out to what you think it is or what we think it is? Or it's easy to kind of look it up on Google, I guess. But
yeah, no, I mean, if you want to, I mean, it's always interesting to me because it seems like, I mean, unless I'm just not digging into it enough, like, because on Live Crime, it's like, what does he say? Like, anyone know what happened to Nikki? Oh, looks like we have a difference of opinion. Like, I'm like, well, I thought he was like a dude who got mixed up with, a kind of New World Order-ish thing. He's killing people. They got him hooked on drugs, and he falls in love with Mary, and, they want him to kill her eventually, and he's like, I can't do it. And then they go kill her. And, I mean, like, some of that we'll get to later, because I really love the story aspects of it. But, again, that first thing, I remember now. I remember how it started. And, I mean, there's nothing there. There's like a couple sentences, and yet it just sets the table so well. You're like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, well, that nurse is kind of like evil sounding, like the way it's like,
right?
Like, something bad's going on here.
Right? Yep. 2112, 1974. Good to see you, man. He says, this album sounds good, but I wish it had the same sound as Empire. Yep. Well, I mean, dude, can't argue that. But, for 1988, this thing sounds huge, at least to me. Be Cool or Be Podcast Out. I did forget to mention this. Gonna Get Close to You is actually a cover by a Canadian artist called Lisa Del Bello, who ironically did a vocal on one song on Alex Lifeson's Victor album in 1996.
Wow.
All right. Well, here we go. Robert Husted says, doesn't Mary kill herself because Dr. X told her to? Oh, it looks like we have a difference of opinion here. Yeah, I don't know. Like that, I've never looked it up, and I just, I always assumed that they killed her because, that he wouldn't do it or something. But maybe that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sort of long been discussed that it was likely suicide, but
Oh well,
it's up for interpretation, I believe.
then I'm a goddamn moron and I didn't do my homework.
Well, no, I mean, he finds her dead and he doesn't really know, doesn't know how it happened. But
Yeah. All right. Well, I always thought that, Dr. X and his, other minions were like, all right, if you're not going to do it, we will. But what do I know?
True. That does show. They do say that. But
So,
yeah, you get right into Revolution Calling, man, and it's like, boom, here's those harmony guitars that start off the song. It's just like, I mean, it's just a it's just there's nothing amazing about that line or anything, but I don't know, it just rips right out of just tears right into your eardrum. Like it just, those guitars are, I saw something online, it's like the guitars are very bright. I think that's a good
yeah,
bright, and they sustain forever. Like, I mean, on every little like pinched harmonic and squawk, and it's like they hold them out, and it just, I don't know, man, they're really emotional the way they attack those guitar parts.
yeah. Well, and I think as the first actual song on the record, it's like you said, it kicks in with those awesome harmony guitars, and it really it sets the tone for the rest of the record in that there's melody in every bit of this record. I mean, the vocals, the riffs, the bass lines have some melody to them. Like the whole record, just it's like you could sing along to so many different parts of this, and it starts right off the bat. And the beat is always just going, and Scott Rockenfield, I think, has always been like kind of an underrated drummer in that respect. Like he's a straight ahead rock, like power metal drummer, I suppose, but man, it just works, and he's so in the pocket, and it grooves, and it's just awesome. And the chorus is fantastic, and that's something that we get throughout the record. And the thing that I've always thought this, it's like, as an opening song, it really sets the bar high, and yet they exceed it and continue to exceed. I'm like, man, I mean, if you were to rank songs on the record, I mean, people could make a case that this would be like middle of the pack, maybe, if they wanted to, and that's really saying something, because this is a phenomenal song. So
you see the JG3, Jeff Tate's acting was better here than in Queensryche Cabaret. Is he talking? I don't know what he's. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Well, we disagreed on that show at House of Blues. You said you hated it. I thought it was awesome.
Oh man, when they did the whole acting thing with this, it was just. But then again, I mean, I'm also used to Operation Live Crime, which if any of you guys have not seen or listened to Operation Live Crime, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm used to that. Like they just get up there and they kill it. And I don't want to see some Broadway musical version of this. It's not, it's man, not a fan. But moving on before we get negative. I guess we did find a negative to this record. They did that acting thing years and years later.
Well, that had to do with the original.
Yeah. But next we get into the song, the title track, Operation Mindcrime, which to me is even better than Revolution Calling. It's got that driving rhythm to it. And this is my absolute favorite Queensryche guitar solo. It's one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. And it actually probably shouldn't be a surprise, because it starts out pretty much the way the solo in The Test That Stumps Them All starts out, with the just grabbing that one note, and like, I just love the sound of electric guitar. And when someone just goes like in Test That Stumps Them All, and this one just does that scream, that and the whole thing, like, I mean, the first part's Michael Wilton, and then DeGarmo does the second half, and oh my God, it's just so good. And then, again, we were talking about the bass, and this has that, do in the second parts of the verses, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, there's almost a funk feel to the bass sometimes in this song. Like, I can't explain it. Like, and the other thing too, and you notice it on every song, but in this song, like, this is truly a rock opera, and I mean that in the sense of every lyric he sings in the verse has melody to it, whereas like a lot of metal albums, a lot of metal type albums, even progressive metal, they're singing notes on the verse. It's not necessarily as melodic, but this is all, I mean, these are just huge giant melodies in the verses themselves. Like, I mean, this is just really well thought out, and just so musical, and like, that's why I'm saying the rock opera aspect to it. Like, whereas like, on stuff like the warning or something. Yeah, he's singing a ton of high notes on all that stuff, but it's not Nikki. There's it's not like doing all these like runs melodically that are coming back down to the chorus and stuff. And I don't know, it's just like every note has a purpose and a meaning behind it. And I mean, you could say Jeff Tate like oversells or oversings, but I mean, everything he does on this is just, I mean, it's gold.
Yeah. And the other thing about it is like the lyrics aren't cheesy. Like it tells a story, but it never delves into the realm of being cheesy. And a lot of concept albums have those cheesy parts because they have to just kind of shoehorn stuff in there for the sake of the story. And you never ever get that with this album. It stays on track, and even the parts that are super story driven, I mean, it all makes sense, and you don't have that cringe moment where you're like, yeah, I could have done something better there. And I love that. I mean, that's one of the fascinating things about this record is that, you listen to it as a whole and it's awesome. But this record, some concept albums, a lot of them have songs that won't stand on their own. They have to be part of the collective. And Mindcrime is one of those that you could pull any one of these songs out and it's awesome. Like standalone awesome. And that is just such a testament to the power of the material. And again, like I really wonder if this is just lightning in a bottle because everything on this record just hits and it works. And, Kale McLeish wants to know, so do we have repetitive choruses or did these just hit the story-driven vocal sections?
Oh.
I mean,
I don't know exactly what he means.
Yeah, I think you have to clarify that, Kale. But I mean, obviously the choruses do repeat. I mean, it's in a standard song structure.
Wait, do you say the same word in the chorus twice? Can you come back to it?
Yeah, clarify that for us, please, Kale, so we can answer you properly.
I thought Kale said he'd like listen to Mindcrime too before, or was that someone else?
I think that was somebody else.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So moving on, we have Speak. What are your thoughts on Speak?
I love Speak. Queensryche is one of the few bands that pull off muting those strings and getting that riff behind it, the mute, and the riff still comes through very, very full and fat. That do in the intro and stuff, and during the verse. Like I don't know, there's a real art form to being able to do that, and they pull that out here. Like this is like a guitar. I don't want to say 80s metal, but this is like metal guitar 101, the way just every trick that these guys do on this album. Like, they mix it up here. They're going to do the mute here. They're going to do the harmonic here. They're going to hold out the chorus longer here. They've got this killer clean thing going behind this dirty thing. But yeah, Speak is that's just a driving rocker. I mean, you kind of had, like you said, I mean, I don't even know where. It doesn't even really let up for like 5 songs here. It's just sort of a nonstop like assault, starting with basically Revolution Calling for like, well, it starts to slow down a little bit once we get the Mission, but like you got like 4 songs in a row, just big, heavy, like just metal bangers, really,
Yep. Yeah. And, I think, the tempo kind of goes back and forth on the record. And this one obviously is, like you said, it's like quick. It's that palm muting and stuff. And man, the song just goes, man. It's so, man, it's so cool. And another thing that they did on this one that I thought was interesting was you've got a couple songs in there with like the really high soaring vocals in the choruses. And this one does the opposite, speak the word. It's got the low chant type of thing going on. So, I thought it was really tasteful how they laid this album out to where once you've got something up tempo, then it's going to go to something more, of a mid tempo. Once you've got something with all these high soaring vocals, they kind of bring it back down. Like it's real tasteful in the way it's presented. And I think this is the first evidence of that because this kind of breaks the mold of, Anarchy X and the 2 songs that precede Speak. So the presentation of the whole thing is just really cool too. So, you had mentioned earlier about the sound bites, and we've got that being, like he's in the crowd, like, hey, listen to me, so it starts out with that. So, all right. So look, Kale's trying to provoke me. He says, I was trying to provoke you because I know one's great and one's terrible. Oh, my God. Kale, I'm going to ban you from the chat. All right, so Robert Reams says, Speak, favorite song on the album. Really like those low vocals at the chorus. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, man. It's like the high soaring stuff is really cool, but then you get something like this that's just, it's totally different.
Even on this song, though, you've got the juxtaposition because you do have that, but then you've got the speak to me, speak to me, where he's like doubling himself there with those parts going on top of the low part too at some point, and you're like,
yep.
I would love to just like been a fly on the wall just to see how many vocals they recorded on this. Like,
yeah,
I mean, sort of like a Def Leppard album. I haven't heard something that has this like just many insane vocal things going on.
Yeah, totally agree. And it kind of pissed me off. Like I bought that like the special edition that they put out recently. Was like the 25th or whatever anniversary, something or other. But I ended up buying it, and I mean it's great. There's a lot of stuff in there, but it says like it's got like the documentary of Operation Mindcrime. I'm like, oh sweet, so I'm ready for like an hour and a half, like studio stuff, and I'm spoiled by Dream Theater and everything, and it's like 5 or 6 minutes long.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Oh, that pissed me off to no end. When I
go ahead.
No, I was just like when I put the DVD in and I looked at the time on the track, I was like, are you kidding me right now? I couldn't believe it. And all it was really was like they were talking more about doing the videos, because if you've seen the video for the videos for the record, they're like that black and white and everything. They did that for pretty much the whole record, and it interspersed with like, movie footage of the story in a way, little snippets. And they more talked about that than actually doing the record and everything. And I was like, well, I don't care about the damn music videos. Tell me how the record was made. Like, what the hell, man?
I do want to say, as much as I love this album, okay, on Spotify alone, I don't know if you know this. So you have Apple Music, or you have something different, right? Amazon?
I have Amazon.
So on Spotify, there's deluxe edition, there's remastered, there's remastered expanded.
Yep.
And there's the original, and there's Live Crime. So as much as I love this album, guys, okay, no more additions of this. We let's not beat this into the ground to the point of where, like, and I understand, I guess they want to get, new fans and new generations into it, but I think we've reached the saturation point.
Yeah. Kale McLeish says, I'm hoping it got bundled with the music videos. Yes, it did, Kale. It came with all the music videos, Operation Live Crime, obviously the remastered record, big like photo book and stuff with a little bit of information in it. But
how many videos did they end up having on this album? Do you remember? It was like 3 or 4. No, there's Eyes of a Stranger.
I Don't Believe in Love, I think. And I mean, they made videos for most of the tracks, if not all, if I remember it. I meant to go back and watch that last night, but it was May the 4th, so I had a little bit of Star Wars stuff to take care of.
Way to get your Star Wars plug in there.
I had to, man. I got to, I do have a Star Wars show called the Nerf Herder Council. It's a nerd podcast, so I had to, do that for my Nerf Herder Council podcast, which is available wherever you find your podcasts. But
Happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way.
It's Revenge. It's Revenge of the 5th.
Come on May 5th or no?
By the way, real quick non sequitur here. We have a thumbs up on our podcast from Facebook from Wayne Joyner, and we have a crying face from one Eric Hendrickson.
Oh boy!
So your brother is trolling us. But yeah, one of those extended versions you mentioned, the record, it has like 2 live tracks, and one of the live tracks is Waiting for 22 in My Empty Room. I'm like, come on, seriously? Like you're gonna give me that as like a bonus track? You can't give me like The Needle Lies or something, or Sweet Sister Mary, like.
Yeah, I hate the way he sings Waiting for 22. His lyrics are terrible.
Nice. So, all right. So getting back into the track by track here, we're moving on to Spreading the Disease. And my note is, I don't have notes. This is just a kick-ass tune.
Yeah, this is when we find out the priest is a perv, apparently.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't know that. Well, I don't even know if we knew there was a priest until now. I can't remember when he comes in. But yeah, we find out he's been doing some stuff with Mary. It's not too cool.
Not very priestly
in the church itself. So yeah, I mean, a cool metal song, but you know, if you kind of strip back the lyrics, kind of disturbing. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's when this is where the story kind of like expands. You know, you kind of start seeing a broader scope of what is going on. You know, you're like, what the hell? There's like a priest banging a homeless chick or something. Like, what is that? So, you know, you know, $25 a fuck, and John's a happy man. So Mary was like an ex-prostitute or something, and you're just like, damn, what is going on here? It's like you're already sucked in because you're like, all right, what's going on with Nikki? Like, what's going on with the main character here? Like, he's got a gun and everything, and you know, he's yelling at people in a crowd or whatever it is in the soundbite, and then now we've got a priest and a prostitute. You're like, ooh,
yeah. Starts getting violent and disturbing quick.
Right, exactly. So, all right. So, The Mission is the next song. What are your thoughts on The Mission?
You know, I love The Mission because we kind of mellow out here to start a little bit, because we've had these 4 or 5 just total metal bangers in a row, and you know, that acoustic guitar starts out and the strings and everything, and it's just, oh man, it's just a powerful. I'm trying to think of like 2 songs back to back on any album that I like more than The Mission and Sweet Sister Mary. Like, it's tough. I don't know. I feel like those 2 songs totally fit together too. Like, it's hard. Yeah. I mean, I know you said you could play any of these songs, but I feel like if you're going to play The Mission, you almost have to go into Sweet Sister Mary next. But man, yeah, the acoustic guitar is just haunting on that, and vocally it's great. And I like how it's we slowed down the tempo and stuff, and it's just a real grooving kind of a grinder, you know.
Yep. And going back to the soundbite thing, you know, they just, man, they flesh out the record. It keeps that creepy vibe going throughout the album. And, you know, if you weren't into this record by now, and then he starts out with, you know, blowing away a priest, you're like, what the hell am I listening to? You know?
Yep.
So, you know, it's got that awesome, you know, the fake televangelist, like, I want you to dig deep into your hearts and your pocketbooks and take his hand. Like, it's just, man, it's so good. And like you said, this is a total change of pace, and it's such a banging tune. And again, I love how you've gotten your ass kicked by, you know, you said like the 4 metal bangers so far. And now all of a sudden, you know, they break it down, they drop it down into a totally different type of a vibe. And man, oh man.
Well, you know, this is Metal 101, and it's coming up the next one too. But I mean, you get, you know, those kind of, I don't want to say evil sounding strings, but those just big symphonic, dark, you know, sounding type, you know, orchestra strings, and you put metal guitar and you put Kate's vocals behind it. I mean, that's just, you know, that's like hard rock gold, Metal 101 right there. I mean, that's always going to sound killer.
Yeah. And man, I think, you know, you make an excellent point that, you know, it fits perfectly with, you know, Sweet Sister Mary, the longest song on the record. I have kind of an analogy here. So to me, Sweet Sister Mary is the best song on the album, but it isn't my favorite song on the record. And I know that's kind of a weird thing, but it's like I used, and I swear I'm not, you know, doing this to promote my other show, but like when it comes to Star Wars, like my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith, but
never heard of podcast.
Yeah, yeah, but
yeah,
but my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith, but I think the best Star Wars movie is Empire Strikes Back. So I think there's a difference between favorite and best. And, you know, for me, Sweet Sister Mary is the best song on the record. And we've talked about Dream Theater songs that are long, but you don't realize it's long because you're just along for the ride and you're super into what's being presented. And this is a perfect example of that, because it's over 10 minutes long, and you're just so into the atmospheric nature of this thing, and, you know, the rainstorm and stuff. And, you know, you mentioned the acoustic guitar in The Mission, and this one's got that. And, you know, the different parts, you know, the ins and outs and everything. And it's awesome, especially because you did start out the record with, you said, like 4 metal bangers, and now you've got this really progressive, 10-minute epic tune to end the first side of the record.
You know what's funny about this one is I remember when seeing how long this was originally before I'd actually listened to the tape and stuff, and I was skeptical because like I'm trying to set the tone. So basically, my epic song existence to this point was "Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner," right? Maiden.
Yeah, I love that song.
Probably Xanadu and Camera Eye from Rush, Orion, maybe Metallica, and possibly my second all-time favorite song from Queensryche, "Roads to Madness."
Okay.
So I was like, oh boy, I just didn't have a lot of experience listening to 10, 11-minute songs, so I was kind of skeptical, but I remember first time I heard it, man, it was just, wow. It's just,
Yeah. Again, like my only exposure to long songs was, the song "And Justice for All" and then "To Live Is to Die." And, those, they're big, just big, long, massive slabs of metal. And, you're in for this big ass ride. And they're great, but they do, that it's long. You feel that it's long. This one doesn't. And even when I was younger and I didn't have the attention span that I do now, like I never noticed it. It was just, I mean, granted, it's probably because I didn't pay attention to the track listing very much at all, because to me it was one cohesive thing.
Well, the other cool element we forgot too is that we've talked about this doing the Symphony X. You get the gigantic Latin choir chants. It sounds like coming from the Omi and Damian, like
yep.
You get all that choir stuff going in with the symphony, with the strings and all that behind it. And I mean, it's the song. It's just such an eerie the way it starts out. I mean, it almost makes a hair on the back of your neck stand up when you're listening to it in headphones. You're like, man, what is this going? And then it just gets super heavy and the message about how desperate she is and he is and what's going on and how do I get out of this and what's right and wrong and he's been duped and all this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's also, I don't know how it lays out on vinyl, but I had the cassette and this ends side one, and you want to talk about a kick-ass way to end, the first half of a record. It's like the perfect way to like cut the story in half. And so, I mean, you got that aspect of it as well. So, Kale McLeish asks, okay, I just had a look. Why is this spelled as Sweet Sister Mary, Suite, instead of Sweet, Sweet Sister Mary? Is this a multi-parter? I've wondered that too, Kale.
I think it's like a musical sort of, not necessarily a pun, but it's like it's the song or the suite about her, the orchestral suite about her.
Yep.
That's sort of always the way I've.
21/12/1974 has a question for you. What? No 21/12?
That song has so many different parts to it. Yes, I mean, that's an amazingly long song. I mean, that's almost a concept album, and it is a concept album in itself. I mean, there's so many.
Isn't that more like the 6 Degrees Suite?
Yeah, I guess sort of similar, but yeah, there's so many different parts. Whereas, like, Sweet Sister Mary has like 2 or 3 main parts, and they all come back together. Whereas 21/12 is kind of a bunch of songs,
Okay.
But that's why I didn't pick that. That's why I used the other references.
Okay, makes sense. All right, you are up, man. The beginning of side 2, The Needle Lies.
Almost like a punk song in a way, like this was one that, I don't know, this was, I guess I would say, it's hard to say your least favorite. The riff on this, I think, is not as great as everything else, but I would love the chorus and stuff, and it's grown on me more, but I always kind of got, I don't know. I mean, the worst thing about Sweet Sister Mary is when you get to the end, it's over. And you're like, wait a minute, I just want to go back and hear that one again.
Right.
So kind of like almost whatever they put here was going to be, but yeah, I kind of almost get a sort of a punk feel from this a little bit, but it's just a real up-tempo metal thing they're trying to get back to kind of banging away after we mellowed out there for, I don't know what, probably close to 17, 18 minutes with those 2 songs.
Yep. Yeah, I think the cool thing about this one is that, it's again it Sweet Sister Mary ends side 1 in such a cool way, and then side 2 opens with The Needle Lies, and it immediately just picks up, and the sound bite just completely matches the mood of the song. It's frustrated, it's furious. He's like, I've had enough and I want out. And it's super quick and everything, and it's just totally metal, and it's a great way, like you said, you've mellowed out for however long with Sweet Sister Mary and the Mission, and now it's time to get back to kicking your ass. But again, the way that they kind of tailor the music to the story and what's going on, I think is really fascinating, because some concept records don't do that. It's just, the story's on top of the music. And I've heard records that don't really match the vibe of what's going on in the story at that particular point to the music that's going on underneath it. I mean, that's not common, I don't think, but I've heard it. And this definitely is not an example of that, because this is just a frenetic, it's just an absolutely frenetic song, and it's kind of, Nicky's mood at the time. He's like, I'm sick of this shit. So you asked me in the private chat. I'll bring this up in public. So you actually had the vinyl. No, I didn't have the vinyl as a kid. I have it now.
Okay.
So I love this record so much that I bought the remastered vinyl, and then I bought the box set, which is CD. So I've got both versions of it sitting up on my shelf over there. And I whenever I collect vinyl just on the records I like. I'm not like I get everything on vinyl. And I keep them sealed. So I haven't opened it to see what it looks like in there or anything. But yeah, I do have it. I just haven't opened it. So
okay.
So moving on, we have Electric Requiem, which of course is kind of like a lead-in track. And here's where the controversy comes in that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Did she kill herself, or did Dr. X kill her? What happened to Mary?
The interesting about this little snippet is it sounds exactly like it was recorded during Rage for Order. Like, it has that sound, that vibe, that feel to it, which is kind of weird, because you're like, hey, did you guys, you're almost wondering, a way, like, was this brewing when you finished Rage for Order? Like, did you go in and do a couple weird things like this and then to come up with this idea? But yeah, it's not really a song, I guess, per se, but it's sort of like continuing the story on. And but yeah, it definitely almost feels like going to get close to you, or something off of Rage for Order, the way it's sonically.
What if Operation Mindcrime was nothing but unused songs from Rage for Order? Like, that's not good enough. We're going to use these other ones.
That would be the ultimate B-side album creation, I guess, if that was the case.
They're like, the label's just rushing them. Like, you have to have an album out in the next like month, and they're like, they're like, ah, shit. So they go back and just pull out all the unused stuff from Rage, and they listen to the record at the end and go, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah, I don't know, as good as a band that they are, that would be that would be something.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I always found about Electric Requiem, if I could pronounce it properly, like you said, it's just kind of like a segue song. It's just like a little whatever, kind of has a very Rage for Order-ish feel, but it definitely sets up the vibe of the last part of the record. There's that kind of like sadness, I guess, so that longing for Mary that kind of permeates the stuff that comes after, and it's set up, even in death you still look sad, and again, it's just this record is put together brilliantly. And when I was listening to it the last few days, that really hit me. It's almost like chapters in a way, and this is like the start to the final chapter. So I think it's pretty cool for that reason. It does lead into Breaking the Silence, and man, this last bunch of songs are just absolute classics, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's kind of like, I don't know, what do you say about these? Like, yeah, kind of go back to your point about, well, you can play every one of these separate if you want. The problem with that is you're going to run into what we ran into with the Dream Theater. Like, all right, if you're going to play Breaking the Silence, you better be ready to go into, I Don't Believe in Love right after that. Otherwise, everyone's going to be mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Play
it. Oh, damn it.
Which is what happened with 6 Degrees, and we got that tease, that.
Oh.
But,
we got Ministry of Lost Souls after About to Crash. Yeah. It's our buddy Joseph Wren, man. Discuss Metal Joe. What's up, guys? Great album, by the way. Yes. Totally agree, man. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. And my buddy from Lima, Stephen Engel, says Breaking the Silence is my favorite track. Hard to argue with that, man. It's a record full of incredible songs, and this is definitely way up there for me too.
I love the "You Never Answer Me," and then that guitar does one of those swell, bend sing outs that we talk about. It holds that for like, I don't know, 9-12 seconds, or just totally makes the song, those little things like that.
Yep. Stephen Engelman, he's getting technical with us. He says, the palm muted semi-chromatic lick in the solo to this day is one of my favorite bits of a guitar solo. I'm terrible at the tech talk with that, like the actual musician speaks, Steven, so I will leave that to you. I will completely believe you that that's what it is. So
I'm trying to think of the solo in that one, but yeah, I mean, we've said before, they're like masters at the palm muting stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned you never answer. The guitar does it too. Like, it's like, you never answer. And the guy goes, like right after it. So that's another really cool aspect to it. And, it's like, again, like it just evokes such a feel of him just wandering the streets, strung out. And God, it's just, again, the atmosphere of this record is so cool. You're just so sucked into it. And this song is another perfect example of that for me. And it does lead into my all-time favorite Queensryche song, I Don't Believe in Love. Is there anybody here in Madison, Wisconsin who believes in love? I don't.
Is that from the Live Crime? Or?
Yeah. This song just rules start to finish. It not just Queensryche, but all time. It's one of my all-time favorite guitar riffs. It's, oh my God, that riff is just so cool. And I never, what I never realized is that it's actually like a variation on the vocal melody in the chorus. And I never noticed that until literally today. And I'm like, what the hell have I been listening to all these years? It's like, I listened to this song above any other Queensryche song. I love this track. And like, I just noticed that.
There's only one other pair of songs that created such a conundrum in my life, because I don't know how many years ago it was The Darkness. They did believe in a thing called love. But I was taught not to believe in love. And
damn you, Darkness.
Right.
My belief structure's been shattered.
Right. So the other example was Bryan Adams' One Night Love Affair. But then I don't know how many years later, Bad Company said One Night Ain't No Love Affair. And it was like, I think literally 2 years later after they got Brian Howe in the band. So I'm like, well, which is it? Is it One Night is a Love Affair, or One Night Ain't No Love Affair? So anyway, I was left with the same massive confusion. These two songs.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, I don't, because I didn't think I believed in love. And then like Justin Hawkins in The Darkness says they believe in a thing called love. So there we are.
Of all things to bring to the table for this song, and that's what you have.
Yeah. No, I mean, great song. Like we said, I probably should have saved that point that I used earlier, but I'll go back to it. Like, this was the song that was played on the radio when this came out, and you're like, okay, this isn't really. I mean, there's songs on here that sound like this, but this is not what the band is about. I mean, it was an obvious choice to play on the radio at that time, but people that just like probably picked it up and thought they were going to hear 7 I Don't Believe in Loves in a row on this album or whatever were probably going, what is this?
Really? See, I mean, don't you think that they're, well, man, I don't know. I think this is a progressive record, but I think that I think there are a lot of songs that are kind of like this. It's a little, I mean, if you're looking at stuff,
there's probably more than I'm thinking.
yeah, I mean, I thought this was pretty straightforward, and some of the other stuff is kind of straightforward. I don't think it's too much of an outlier. I mean,
I guess I'll go back to my point about, it's not just a song. It doesn't stand alone. Like, it's part of this whole story. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to kind of miss the point of it if you just hear the single or whatever and don't hear. Does that make sense? Or should I just shut up? I'm going to mute myself. Go ahead, Jimmy.
And Brian bails on his own take first for talking into infinity. I think it fits in nicely. I mean, if you're referencing the story, I don't think this one is overly. I guess it is, I guess it is kind of story, like it told me to run, but just how far. So, yeah. Well, no, I think it's ambiguous enough to stand alone on its stand alone as a song.
It stands alone, but what I'm saying is, like, if you just heard this on the radio and didn't know anything else about Queensryche, I think you would just think this was a song about some dude that doesn't believe in love.
What if that's all it is?
Which I don't know why anyone cares. I'm going to mute myself again. Go ahead, John.
Man, Brian, you are just crapping all over this great song. What is wrong with you tonight?
No, I love this song. I was trying to make, I don't know, just go on to the next song.
He's like,
I think the point I'm trying to make. It's just, maybe it's not a great point, or it's not making sense.
Maybe I'm just not agreeing with it. I don't know. Could be. Joseph Friend, Discuss Metal Joe. He goes back to something we said earlier. He's not wrong. He says, in the history of thick guitar tones, this album has one of my favorite 80s one guy, but he's doubled tones of all time. And Brian, keep believing in love and the darkness. Brian May did.
Nice.
All right, so now we get to what might quite possibly be, well, actually, not yet. I did almost skip. We have Waiting for 22 and My Empty Room, which is, he's caught. And Nicky's caught. At least that's what I get off of it. But yeah, he's stuck, and everything's kind of come to a head, and not much to say here. It's kind of cool. It's
like, I love that. It's a killer clean riff, that droning solo.
Yep.
It's got that sort of echoing back and forth guitar things. It's just real haunting and, like, introspective. I mean, it's a short little thing, but a really cool piece of music.
Yeah, to me, this is like where I take a breath. I'm like, whew, man, what was all that? So it's kind of, this is like a breather for me. And again, I think it annoys me because one of the extended versions has 2 live tracks, and these 2 are one of them. Like, damn you. So,
all right, Kale, seriously. So is this about a guy who only secretly believes in love, or not?
That's the real crux of the story. We're not worried about Nikki and Mary and the priest and Dr. X and all that kind of stuff. We're trying to figure out if somebody actually believes in love or if they don't.
Ooh, Robert Reams cage match suggestion. He says, Operation Mindcrime versus Metropolis Part 2, which wins?
Operation Mindcrime. I love Metropolis. I love it. But Mindcrime is just one of those albums that has emotional significance for me, and it's absolutely just perfect throughout. And the vibe.
Is it in the song or the album?
Well, obviously the album.
Oh, okay.
Why would you do a cage match song versus song?
They said Metropolis Part 2. So.
That's our next episode. We are going to do Waiting for Sleep versus Along for the Ride, the cage match. Stick with us as we battle 2 Dream Theater ballads against each other for an hour.
Dedicated to chaos versus
God.
vacant.
Yeah. No, I mean, man. So Sarcasmo S. Holio 420. Evening. Does Johnny Depp listen to Dream Theater? Oh my Lord. So Waiting for 22 in My Empty Room leads into what I would argue might be the greatest album closer of all time, Eyes of a Stranger. That
Yeah.
it's always amazing to me that like the song that really broke them and that turned out to be the big single from this record was the final track. I can't think of another record like that where, you know, you get to the very end of the record and that's what like really blew up a band, like, you know, on the radio and everything for a particular album. I can't think of anything else. Can you?
Not offhand. No. I suppose if we like really researched it, but yeah, no, I mean it is weird. I don't. Was this the second single? We think.
I thought it was.
I think it was.
I really think it was, and because and they were basically like, if I'm remembering the story correctly, they basically put out I Don't Believe in Love and nothing really happened, and they were almost going to be done with, you know, the cycle on the record, and it's like, okay, nothing's happening with this album, and they decided to put out, you know, Eyes of a Stranger, and all of a sudden all hell broke loose. So it really just, I mean, changed the fortunes of the band, really.
Yeah, I mean, I had in my notes that is this the greatest song, album closing song, because it closes a ridiculously cool concept album. Also, I mean, when those overhead, like the Doctor, you know, Dr. Davis, you know, and you hear like the footsteps, and you know, and then you hear the guitars kind of slowly starts droning, and then you get into those circular riffs that they start in the main riff. It just, I don't know, man. Yeah, that's one of those songs. I just, every time you hear it, you're just like, oh man, this is awesome.
The only question whenever you hear this is, do I turn it up or do I not? Like,
Yeah.
Even if you're in a place where you can't really turn it up, you got to turn it up a little bit. You're like, oh man, Eyes of a Stranger.
My only beef with the song is it's not with the song itself, but the current version of the band like has tried some acoustic things with this. I don't think it works for that song. I don't know if you heard those, but I thought they were.
I have not.
Yeah, maybe if they were redone a different way, but the way they're out there on YouTube, they've done like some pre-show, I don't know, whatever promo things somewhere like in a record store or in a club or whatever, and it's just the singer and guitar player, you know, from the current version, but this one doesn't work acoustically. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, I saw Jeff Tate acoustic with his full band a few years back, and he did a couple songs off this record, and this was one of them. And I mean, with a full band, it was kind of cool, but I mean, you kind of need that layering.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think, you know, as much as these are phenomenal songs, I don't think they're songs that break down into that, you know, singer-songwriter type of vibe, because there's just too much going on that you would miss, you know?
Ooh, Metal Joe. Does Cherry Pie count since it was the last song they recorded and had nothing to do with Uncle Tom's Cabin?
I'm really not familiar with Warrant, so I'm out. I know Uncle Tom's Cabin kicks ass. I know that. So yeah,
Is Cherry Pie the last song on the album? It must be. I
thought it was the first.
No. Oh, it's either the first or the last. Well, he says it's the last song they recorded, so I don't know what that means.
Nah, Joe, I'm talking about like last on the record. So, you know, so I mean to close it out though, I mean it's a perfect guitar solo, it's a perfect song, it's a perfect album closer, and then you got that fade in, like I remember now, like it's the whole thing just comes full circle, and you know, it's to end on that song is just phenomenal because the whole record is so damn good. And you want to talk about a record that just leaves you wanting more. I mean, the hype that this must have built for Empire among people that were fans of the band must have been just enormous. That they're like, holy crap, you know, what's coming next? And, you know, thank goodness, you know, Empire is a pretty damn good follow-up. I mean,
well, and they kind of continued into this sort of political thing too, because Empire's, you know, basically all about the same thing, the media and the rich controlling and the 1%, rules
Yep.
America and this and that. And it kind of followed this. I mean, it's not like an insanely unique concept that they came up with, but it's very, I mean, it's very plausible. It's stuff that probably does happen and happens in other, in other countries and can happen here too. I mean, there's a lot of subversive organizations that could just take over things, and stuff goes on behind the scenes, and people are just made to be puppets. And we don't want to turn into a political show, but I mean, you see this stuff all over. It's very applicable to today, to what's going on in the world, honestly.
I was thinking that, like, you kind of listened to it back in the day. Like I say, I was 12 years old, and you're like, oh, this is just a story. But now you've heard stories of things like this kind of going on since then. You're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, wow. All right. Well, okay. So that's, whew. Yeah. Overall, man, I think, this album is just, man, what makes it is that not only is the story really cool, but again, it's one of those records where the music just backs it up like 150%. I mean, all of these songs could stand on their own, and some of them are more story driven. So you'd be like, what the hell is he talking about? But they're all great individually and could be released as a single. I think most of them, and the atmospheric stuff that they do with the sound bites, they're perfectly placed, and they just push everything along. So it's like, you kind of go, oh man, that song kicks ass. Ooh, wait, what's going on with the story? What do you say? What's happening? Like, it just pulls you in and doesn't let go. To this day, I absolutely love this record, man. It's like, it has never changed for me. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, this one never gets old. I mean, and it's cool to see when a band's in their prime, and you can tell that everyone's kind of on the same page, and it's all just sort of just kind of comes together. Like, it's hard to imagine that. Obviously later years, bands always grow apart. It almost always happens no matter what. But like, even being fairly young still at the time, and able to pull this all together, you'd have to be pretty tight knit as songwriters and band members to pull something like this off. Because if you all hated each other, it would it would be pretty rough, I think, to pull off something of this magnitude.
Yeah. Well, I think that, as we discussed, this is their fourth record, and they hadn't really hit. I mean, they had the EP or whatever, but and so I think there's a certain amount of desperation that had to have been, gone into this record. It's like, this is kind of, if this doesn't work, then nothing's going to work. So in that respect, it's also kind of a ballsy move. I think, it kind of mirrors the whole Scenes from a Memory thing, when Portnoy was like, told the label, just piss off, like, we're going to do it on our own. And instead of trying to put out, Images and Words Part 2, he goes and does this massive concept record, and just takes like the ultimate chance right at the point where it's completely sink or swim. And, Queensryche did that, a decade earlier with Mindcrime. And it's a fascinating decision. And again, there's so many nuances to this. I can't believe that somebody hasn't done like a documentary or written a book about just on this record. There's so much there, and explaining the story. And speaking of the story, Cale says, to answer the question asked earlier about Mary's fate, it's revealed in one of the live DVDs that Mary did in fact kill herself because Dr. X threatened to kill Nikki if she didn't. All right, well, so there's that. Thank you for clearing that up. So no ambiguity there anymore. Yeah, JG3, he makes a good point here. It's wild how good of a guitarist Chris DeGarmo was, and since he left Queensryche, he's basically retired from music. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, all he did was the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is I know he did the Jerry Cantrell tour. I think I don't remember if he was on the album or not, but he did some stuff with Jerry Cantrell's solo work.
Well, we've said before, once he left the band, the writing was, the songwriting took a ginormous downward spiral, to put it mildly, I guess.
Well, he was still there for Here in the Now Frontier, so that
I'd still give him a pass on that. Like, it was nowhere near as bad as what would come later.
I would disagree. It was all shit. No, I mean, it's so weird with this band, with Queensryche, because, whenever they come around on tour, I will always go see them. And I never did with Tate because I just knew they're going to play all that other, like he's going to ramrod the crap Queensryche down people's throats. He's got that artistic thing he's interested in. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that shit. And so when they got Latore in the band and they're like, yeah, we're celebrating classic Queensryche, I'm like, thank God. So now you go to Queensryche, you get nothing. You get the new Latore records. You get a couple of those songs, but you get nothing past Promised Land. It's like, oh, thank God. Like,
Yeah.
You don't have to hear Frequency Unknown or, American Soldier or Tribe or anything like that. You're like, keep that, just go away. Like, stop.
Like my dream, what would be your dream like re-recorded album? So I would love to hear The Warning re-recorded. I guess with probably Todd Latore singing it, but with all the other original members, or Tate singing it, either way. But I want it re-recorded, but I don't want it to sound like too modern. You know what I mean? Like I just want the quality to be way better than the actual recording is now.
Do I have to pick a Queensryche record?
No, just pick one. Pick an album.
Man, that's a tough one because I there's a lot of records I listen to and I think, man, if this was just bigger and fatter, like, man, that I would really have to think about that. I'm trying to get into that 80s, early 90s headspace of albums that I love that I'm just like, I mean, the obvious one is throw some bass guitar on and Justice for All and let's roll. Like, I mean, that's the obvious one.
Well, I'd even say from this same year, like talked about So Far So Good So What. Like, I'd love to hear that. Like,
yeah,
I think the songs on there are decent enough they would warrant re-recording.
Yeah, I mean, if you took like the production from something like Endgame or Dystopia, I mean, those records sound fat, dude. So I mean, if you're just gonna keep Megadeth with Megadeth, like. That would be a good choice.
Or even just get us up to Peace Cells level. Like I love the sound of Peace Cells.
Yeah, even that's a little thin. But god damn, that's a really, really tough question. I keep trying to think of like a Van Halen record because that's my favorite band, and I'm like, no, I'm fine.
Here's an interesting one. Kale says the first two Maiden albums put Bruce on the vocals.
Oh, that's a good call, Kale. That's a good call. Yeah. All right. And JG3 brings up an obvious one. When Dream and Day Unite, easy. Yeah, I mean, if you were to do When Dream and Day Unite with, I mean, if you want to just say Images and Words production, you can go there. But the 6 Degrees production is kick ass. Distance Over Time has great production, and put James up there,
My only problem with that one is the songs are kind of sort of all over the place. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, the obvious staples of like Fortune and Lies, I'd like to hear that with a little better production, but the other songs are so kind of, like, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying, or my
I totally get it. I mean, where I stand on this record. I think When Dream and Day Unite is awesome. I think it's really, really cool.
So I guess my point is, since the songs are all kind of so different, if you do new production on them, what's that? I don't know. That's a little tricky for me, but I mean, I get why people would say that.
Well, I mean, it gets difficult because you have to do it like note for note, kind of like when, Def Leppard, they weren't going to put their stuff out on the digital platforms, and so they decided that they were just they put out they redid Pour Some Sugar on Me and basically did it like exactly like it was on Hysteria, but it was this updated version they could sell, so they're making all the coin off of it. Yeah. So I mean re-recorded albums to me are, I don't mind it, I suppose.
Big fan of Wicked Sensation.
Right. Well, I mean, dude, we talked a little bit about Testament earlier. First Strike Still Deadly. That's fucking awesome. So, I mean, that's how to do it. The re-recorded Bonded by Blood, I thought was pretty damn good. I mean, it was tuned down, so it was like heavier. So that was cool. But a lot of these bands, when they do it, Dokken re-recorded their greatest hits, and Don was doing that low vocal thing that I'm just not a fan of, and it's
no, that's what they should do is re-record the 2 Blaze Bayley albums, except not have Blaze Bayley on them.
Well,
and not have the songs either.
It's funny. Cale just typed that. He says, "Okay, so we'll take over the Blaze albums instead. Throw Angel and the Gambler off the roof for permanent."
Just throw the entire albums off.
Yeah. JG3, he nails it. I was going to bring this up. He says Jeff Tate did that as well when he released Frequency Unknown with his Queensryche. He re-recorded Silent Lucidity, Della Brown, Jet City Woman, and they didn't sound better.
Well, how is Jet City Woman going to sound better? I mean, come on. That's like one of the greatest produced albums of all time. Empire.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I do like? Did you ever hear that version they have of Scarborough Fair? That is cool.
I don't like that song.
Oh, really?
It's not the way they did it. I'm just not a fan of that song.
Oh, okay. I love like, that Simon and Garfunkel stuff like that with the round in it. But yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because like I don't know if this is a re-record, but I really love the last song on Promised Land. Was it Somebody Else or something like that? And it's just him and the piano, Tate and the piano. And there's an extended version of the record that has a full band version of it, and that song is not very good with the full band. I mean, it really takes something away from it. Like there's something about this the feel of the solo piano and vocal that is really, really great. And the full electric version just it strips it of that. And you're just like, eh. So,
Brian's trying to say forgettable. What am I trying to say?
Yeah.
About Scarborough Fair? Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah. It could be. So, well, man, this was fun. And we've got more of this stuff coming. We still have to figure out the Metallica debate. Are we gonna cage match Justice versus Master of Puppets? Are we gonna do a deep dive?
Well, we did figure out our next concept album, though, as we discussed before. It will be Ludicrous Chicken and Beer. Very extremely deep album. About both chicken and beer.
Which came first, the chicken or the beer?
Exactly.
Oh my Lord!
No, this was fun, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. We've got some good stuff behind the scenes we're talking about doing. So there's you guys have ones, drop us a line on our, on our Twitter or our Facebook. Let us know. We'll come up with some.
Yep.
But we got a couple good ones brewing here. I'm excited about.
Yeah, like I said, June 25th, we got a very special episode coming up. That's a Saturday, so it'll be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be a special episode. You guys do not want to miss. That's going to be really, really cool. We'll have some more details as that gets closer.
Are we doing another fan party? I use the word fan like they're really fans of ours.
Yeah, I have to get that on the calendar because my summers are insanely busy on Fridays and Saturdays with the cover band I sing for. So
go ahead, promote your cover band too. You've already been doing this.
Well, I have to have a legitimate excuse. It's not like, I don't have a lot of Fridays and Saturdays because I'm, I sit in my man cave diddling myself all night. Like, it's not that. Like, I actually have things I'm doing.
I don't sit on here promote stuff. June 4th, dueling pianos at the Boot in Geneva, Ohio, 7 to 10 p.m. Tickets are $15.
There you go, man. $15 to watch you.
I know. When I saw that, I was like,
all right.
What's one of those scary things? Go ahead.
What is a worse deal? $5,000 for the Kiss meet and greet, or $15 to see you play piano and sing? If that's not a low blow, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it's close. I don't know. $700 to see if Vinnie Vincent shows up.
Oh my God! All right, yeah, that takes the cake.
Play.
Yeah. Look at the JG3 says they're called the Talking Into Infinity Groupies. Oh, that's hilarious, man. Oh my God. Yeah, but if you guys have show ideas, like Brian said, just you can hit us up on Twitter, which is @TIIDT Podcast. just go to our Facebook page. You can shoot us an email directly, talkingintoinfinity@gmail.com. Don't forget, we are here every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. And if you are watching on YouTube, just click that like and subscribe button so you get notified every time we go live. Because, again, we do he said we do special shows every here and there, so you don't want to miss those. And, Brian, to close the show, to answer your question, yes, we are going to do another fan hangout pretty soon. I'm going to get that on my calendar, and I'm going to promote that for a couple months so that everybody knows when it is. And the biggest burning question on everyone's mind, since I am talking about a fan hangout, yes, I will be imbibing in gorilla farts yet again. So,
and I'm going to debut the Brian's bartender tips. You'll get to see my cocktail concoctions.
How to get ripped on $5.42.
Oh wait! Hey, whoa! Easy. $4.20.
You're not gonna be a big spender for that episode.
No, I'm gonna have a couple different options, but yeah, I try to keep it under $5 easily.
So Kale says he'll pay $15 to see you if you pay for his flight.
Dude, if it was like a domestic flight, I would totally do it, man. I would love for you to come up and hang out, but I don't know if I can sport Australia.
That is the biggest lie I've ever heard. You pinch nickels harder than anybody I've ever met. Soon as we get off,
I would pay for Kale to come if it was, reasonable. But I don't know what it costs to fly a kangaroo from Austria, Kangaroo Airlines, or whatever they do over there in Austria.
Oh my God, so bad. Well, anyways, guys, thanks for checking out another episode. Hopefully, you guys had a good time with this one. I know Brian and I had a blast talking about a band that influenced Dream Theater and a record that influenced one of their best records. So JG3, Kale McLeish, Robert Husted, Robert Reams, Joseph Wren, Sarcasmo, Asholio, all you guys, be cool or be podcast out. Thanks again for checking out the show, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. It will be Thursday, May 19th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, Carpe Diem.